Consider the situation of higher education. You have a great deal of tax money being spent on higher education. Who benefits? Primarily the people who go to the institutions of higher education, the students. Where do they come from? They come disproportionately from the upper income classes. Even those of them who come from the lower income classes, as I myself did, are going to be converted by their college education in large part and by their own qualities into people in the upper income class. Those individuals from low-income families who have the ability and the energy and the drive to go to college are the richer ones of the low-income class. They are the ones who have personal wealth, personal qualities. In any event, the facts are clear. Graduates of college are on the average a very much higher income class than people who don't go to college. So what do? We impose taxes on everybody, including those who don't go to college, in order to subsidize the people who do go to college. As I say, when I want to be demagogic, we impose taxes on the people in Watts to send the children from Beverly Hills to college. That's a literally exact statement. There's no, it's put demagogically, but the facts are literal. A study in the state of California some years back showed that 50% of the students at the state universities of higher education came from the top 25% of the income scale, and 5% came from the bottom 25%. What's true there is true everywhere. There is no social program in this country, in my opinion, which is so clearly a case of imposing taxes on low-income groups to benefit high-income groups as government subsidies to higher education. Clearly a case of this middle coalition taxing the poor and the very rich to benefit themselves. Now that case is dramatic and shows these forces at work, and it also shows how hard it is to do anything about it. How many people in this room, how many of my colleagues at the various universities I've been, or your fellow students, are going to go out tomorrow and campaign for cutting down government expenditures on higher education? How often do you hear people in colleges, universities, or graduates of college and universities who will scream their head off about how we must have equality and down with regressive taxes, and we have to tax the rich and help the poor? How many of them have you heard denounce this utterly unconscionable program of imposing taxes on the poor to send people who are going to be well-to-do to college? Why not? Because we know that what's good for us is good for the country. I think it's a good thing that everybody should have an opportunity to go to college, if he has the will, the capacity to do so, provided he's willing to pay for it himself. If he can't do it in advance, fine, let's set up mechanisms whereby we can finance him through college in return for a commitment on his part to pay it back later. And we can go into details about the form and so on. I'm just trying to get at the principle of the thing. Let me give you some other examples. A major one of these programs, the most expensive, is Social Security. Now, Social Security is a case, as you may know, and it's one of the most extreme cases of misleading advertising that I know of. It's not social, and it's not security. What it is a combination of a bad tax and a bad relief program, a bad distributive program. It is sold as if individuals who pay Social Security taxes are paying for their own benefits that they're going to get later on. That's the language in which the Social Security Administration sells it. That's extremely misleading. What's happening is that people today are paying taxes on their wages. People today are receiving payments from the government. The relation between the taxes Mr. X pays and the benefits to which he is entitled is very, very slight. There is a tiny bit of a relationship to maintain this fiction. But on the whole, there's very little relationship. Two people who pay the same amount of money in through their lives may get very different benefits. But let's leave that aside. I want to go to the point I'm talking about the tendency for us, and for those of us in the middle class, to impose programs that benefit us at the expense of people below us. Social Security does involve a very large transfer from the young to the old. That is, today's young pay taxes, which go to pay benefits to the old. But over and above that, it involves a very substantial transfer from low-income groups to middle-income groups. How come? Well, consider. At what age does a young man or young woman from the lower-income groups go to work? 16, 17, 18. He or she will start to pay Social Security taxes at that time. At what time do we go to work, or do our children go to work? You and they stay protected in schools, stay at college. They generally start to work at 24 or 25 maybe, and then they start to pay taxes. If you do a little actuarial calculation, as nowadays you can all do on one of those handy Hewlett-Packard calculators, you will discover that the effect of this is to make the total payments of those who start early about a third higher in actuarial value than the payments of those who start later. But that's only half the story. Have you ever looked at the statistics of average length of life? Who do you suppose has a longer expected length of life, those in the lower income groups or those in the higher income groups? Those in the higher income groups. As a consequence, those of us in the middle and upper income groups pay less taxes because we start paying later, and we get more benefits because we live longer, with the end result that you have a program enacted in the name of helping the poor and keeping the poor out of the poorhouse, which has the effect of benefiting middle-income groups at the expense of relatively low-income groups. Now, over and above that, there are lots of inequities. There are lots of people in the middle-income groups who don't benefit, some in the low who do. I'm not saying there isn't. It's an enormously complicated program, and there are many different considerations. But taken as a whole, it's a marvelous illustration of the tendency for legislation enacted in the name of helping the poor to turn out to be a way in which middle-income people help themselves.